In this new video, we will add a listen clause to the treasure hunt to make it automatic. A listen statement defines that before modifying the value of an attribute of a given model, it will execute the rule where it has been declared. We start by going to the search treasure.ms file and add the listen statement to the search rule. We start with the word listen after the name of the rule, open parenthesis, and write the attributes to be observed, separated by comma. In this case, only the search by point attribute. This attribute is from the search treasure experience, so after the attribute we put the word from, and then the name of the model to which it belongs. This way, we have defined a listener of our search rule so that it runs every time the search by point attribute changes its value. We are not listening to the value change of the securities array since they do not change value, but the selected item will change, and therefore the listen will not be executed. Now we can get a detailed view of the selected treasure from the list by creating a rule. In the search treasure context, we add a new rule named select treasure. In it, we will obtain the selected treasure and show it in a new layout with all the details. First, we obtain the data source of the experience and assign it to a variable of the same type. In this case, we will call it search treasure. Next, we obtain the index of the selected element by creating an integer variable named index. We assign the calls return value to the get method with 0 parameter, to the return of the selected method, called in the list treasures attribute of the search treasure data source. We already have the index selected, so we leave without selecting any element in the list. We do this with the setSelected method of lists and pass an empty array as parameter. This way, the list of selected elements will be empty. Next, we create a treasure search type variable named treasure search to assign the selected element of the UI. We will obtain this element with the index variable passed as parameter in the get method. Now we need to perform the search of all the treasure data to show it to the user. To do this, we will look for the treasure by name, since it is unique thanks to our validation in the creation of treasures. We define a filter, named filter, and that will be used in treasure models. Then, we call the isEqualTo method to define that the attribute name must be equal to the attribute name of the treasure search variable. Then, we have to perform the search in cloud persistence by passing the filter as parameter. The return will be assigned to a variable of treasure array type named treasures. Finally, we will perform the push to visualize this treasure. The layout that we create will be called treasure, and as a parameter, we will pass the return of the get method with the 0 parameter of the treasures variable. We have finished creating the rule for the selected elements. This rule will be executed when the onSelect event occurs in the attribute list treasures. To assign this event to the attribute, we will go to the build UI and enter the search treasure layout. Then, we select the list component that is bound to the list treasures attribute and we display the properties panel in the events section. In this section, we select the event onSelect event, then the action run rule action. In the context, we enter search treasure context. In the rule, we enter search treasure, and finally, we click on add action. We already have our rule linked to the onSelect event in the list bound to the list treasures attribute of the search treasure experience. Now we need to create the treasure layout to show the detail of the treasures. So in the build UI, we click on the button to create a new layout and enter the name treasure. Then, in the right panel, we go to the Data Sources section and click on the Add Data Source button. Select the treasure model from the type list and enter it named treasure. This way, we have already defined the data source of our layout. Now we need to add the UI components to display all the values of the treasure to be displayed. So, we added 4 labels, a map view, and a list. We will begin to modify the map view. This component will be used to show the user's location. The first thing is to select the component, and then go to the map section of the component. In this section, we will have to add a name to the map view, in this case, user map. Then select the type of map, satellite. Following, we will select that the map will focus on the user's location, and finally, we will enable the option to show the user's location automatically. In this way, we have finished modifying our map view. Now we will go back to the label components. Select the first one and go to the data binding section, and in the attribute path, we enter treasure.name. In this way, the name attribute of the data source of the layout will be bound to this component. In this way, we have to do the same with the other labels. Select the following one and enter treasure.points. In the next, treasure.creator.name. And in the last label, we enter treasure.win.name. Finally, we would need to complete the binding of the list. This list will be bound to an arrangement of models, so we will have to create a template to show the values. So we create a template named user, enter it and use the label that contains by default. We go to the default section, delete the text and enter the text, "There is no winner in this treasure." This will serve to show in the win attribute when it has not linked to winner. Finally, in the data binding section, enter the text name. We have already created our template, so we return to the treasure layout. We select the list component that is at the end of it. We go to the template and template binding section, and in template we select user, and in the name attribute that is created, we enter the binding to the name attribute. Now we have to add the win attribute of type user to our treasure model. So we go back to the model and the models.ms file and add this attribute. Then we will go to the createTreasure.ms file, and in the createTreasure rule, we will add a statement to avoid an error in our application when trying to access a null attribute, as it will happen with the win attribute, since there will not always be a winner in the search for treasures. So we added the following statement before performing the persistence in Cloud Persistence. New treasure.win equals user, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. In this way, we can now save our application, and then try it in our viewer to visualize its correct functioning. See you in the next video.